Well, guess what, guys? We have another Claude model to test today. Claude Sonnet 4.5. In this video, we're going to put it through all my prompts. And in particular, I have gone through and replaced a few steps in my automations, which are the most powerful things that I've built, to see how well Sonnet 4.5 does against others like Claude Opus 4.1. So let's get into it. First of all, we've got this announcement here from Anthropic themselves. There isn't really anything in here that is relevant to authors and creative writers. It does say right here at the beginning, it says Claude Sonnet 4.5 is the best coding model in the world. Those are some pretty bold claims from Claude. So I'm assuming this includes their own Claude Opus 4.1, which is a very powerful model. But if you scan through this, you'll notice, it's got all of these tests and everything showing just how good it is, even against their own models and things like that. I don't put a whole lot of faith in a lot of these bench tests. Mostly, maybe they're good for some use cases, but when it comes for writing, they don't really mean much. But you can tell that, it's a good model, right? They're claiming it's a major upgrade. Okay, so what we're going to do today, we're going to compare it to I've gone through and run it through my standard prompts that I run all of the models through. So I'll give you my initial thoughts on that. I feel like a lot of those top prompts are a little bit outdated these days. So instead, I now have. I actually ran it through an automation. So this is a story I'm working on. I have the whole outline, everything ready. And I produced the first 3 chapters using Sonnet 4, Opus 4.1, and Sonnet 4.5. So we're going to use this to kind of compare which one is best, but we'll get to that last, okay? First, let's go to the test prompts that I ran. There are a couple of things here that I was really impressed with. First of all, I'm going to kind of breeze through these because a lot of these are kind of just standard at this point. Like all of the models do okay on them. The logline prompts I thought were fine. Nothing particularly groundbreaking about them. Nothing that was like stood out to me like, oh my gosh, every single one of these ideas is a banger. Not really. There are a couple of good ones in here. A couple that I didn't think were as good, but I wouldn't say there's really been much improvement on this front in a while for any of the models. So that might be a prompt that I need to work on. Now the outline test prompt, this is where I give it a full outline template and a brief premise and have it just outline the whole novel. It was working on, like what it was doing was absolutely fantastic. So you can see, here's the prologue. Boom, 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 boom. There it is. That's the whole prologue. Here's chapter 1. All the way until here. So this is all of chapter 1 here. That one chapter is like 400 words that it wrote for the summary of that. Now, if we scroll all the way down, because I was using Open Router, it did kind of time out right around here at chapter 14. And it wrote several thousand words getting up to chapter 14, all of which were pretty lengthy. And some of them even had little bits of dialogue in there. As you can see here, like, you're from the mountain city, she says. It's not a question. Lathan defensive. How do you know? So it's like kind of going in and out of prose and summary. But I could have just asked it to continue and it would continue to do the whole thing for the full 40 chapters that I have in the template. But I do think that what it did manage to do here before it just kind of timed out, you can see it stopped mid-sentence here, was actually very, very good. And I was reading through it and I was just like, this is actually a decent story compared to other things that I've seen. Is it that much better than Claude Sonnet 4 or Sonnet 3.5 or 3.7, I should say? That's debatable, but it's definitely not worse. In fact, I would say it's pretty clearly a better outline so far. It certainly is more thorough, right? Based on the same prompt that I've used before. Okay. Beats prompt, nothing really groundbreaking here. Pretty much all of the models do well at the beats. But the basic prose prompt, let's get into this a little bit here. So this is the prompt. I give it almost no style direction or anything. I just ask it to write a couple of beats that I give it. And let's read through a little bit of this here. So we've got the wind screamed across the wasteland, whipping dust and grit through the skeletal fingers of ancient stone formations that cast long shadows in the dying light. I know the long shadows thing is kind of a cliche at this point with AI, but that's in the instructions, so that's why it's there. Dusk painted the rocky expanse in shades of blood and ash, and something else moved within those shadows, something that was not wind, not stone. Haldred stumbled over a jutting ridge of basalt, catching himself with scraped palms before he could fall completely. His legs burned with particular agony of muscles, pushed past exhaustion, past desperation, into the realm where the body moves only because the mind refuses to accept the alternative. So this is actually not bad. And if we continue, there's when the scene starts to get good, we say, then he looked back. They were closer than before, far closer, at least 24 figures scattered across the rocky terrain behind him, moving with that horrible jerking gait that marked them as something other than human, something that had once been human, but was now only hunger given form. Their gray skin barely stood out from the gray wasteland, save for the wrongness of their movement, the way they lurched and stuttered forward like broken puppets yanked by an impatient master. This is definitely good. This is good prose. A couple of things in there that I would probably tweak to make it a little bit less dramatic, but yeah, this is solid. Definitely a solid thing. I got good results out of the more complicated prompt here. It is a little bit shorter, but that could be easily remedied. The dialogue prose template, the prose prompt here also was very, very good. Nothing really there to say there. Here's one where I was a little bit impressed. So I have this editing prose template where I give it a scene that was written by a older AI. In fact, I believe it was Claude 2. That really wasn't good. It's not something that I would use. And I take that scene and I give it to each of the models to see and ask it to improve on the scene to see what it does. Almost always, it does not give me a good response. This is the first time where it edited the scene and I actually thought it was significantly better. So, with that in mind, this might be a good model to use if you are maybe writing a quick first draft of your own and you just want to give it to the AI to see what it can do to change it and make it better. This might be a good one for you to check out, because if just looking through this, and I won't read through all of it, you'll just have to take me at my word here, that this was a really solid revision. It's not perfect. I still think if I were to it would probably be better for me to just redo the scene using a more advanced model than to ask it to improve. But if you're doing this on your own work, this, I think actually will make a difference on your work. So that's pretty cool. We got the add headlines prompt where I ask it to take the story concept and create some headlines that could be used on Facebook or whatever. They were all a bit long, in my opinion, but they weren't necessarily bad. Exiled into a wasteland of monsters and shadows, but the real horror is what he discovers about home. That's not too bad. They told him the world outside was dead. They lied. What else did they hide? Another decent one, So, they're not all winners, but they're fine. And if I were to just ask it to make them a little bit more concise and brief, I could probably get more of what I'm looking for. I did ask for an email newsletter, and this one did okay as well. I did change the prompt for this because the prompt that I was using was creating results in pretty much every model that I tested that I didn't like. So I actually simplified the prompt a little bit, didn't give it as much style advice, just ask it to write me a simple newsletter announcing the release of this new epic fantasy novel, right? Yeah, it's fine. It's brief. It's to the point. And very little that I would actually change about it, at least given the template that I gave it. But here's where I was really impressed. So I always ask these new models, I always test to see how it does creating an SEO article. And I give it a bunch of articles as examples, and then I ask it to write 4,000 words in this case on the topic of how to write a fantasy novel. and it actually wrote 4,000 words, and they're actually pretty good. It followed the outline exactly. It gave me like it's really scannable, as you can see here. Like we've got everything kind of broken up into good headings. We've got lists here. We've got clear, like everything is very clearly, easy to find. Steps to write a fantasy novel. Identify your audience. Before you write a single word, figure out who you're writing for. This isn't about limiting your creativity. It's about making smart choices that serve your story. Are you writing for young adult readers? Then keep your protagonist between 15 and 18. Focus on the coming of age themes and aim for 70,000 to 100,000 words. Writing for adult. By the way, I write young adult fantasy, and that's spot on. Writing for adults, you can explore darker themes, write longer, and assume more sophisticated reading ability. Research your target audience by, and so forth. And this is actually a pretty decent article. A few things that I would tweak just in the language, but overall, like it nailed this task. And it is one of the first that has actually done so to my satisfaction, especially when you like read through it and you just see how scannable it is. This is a beautiful article, at least for AI, right? Beautiful, very well done. So I'm very happy with this. All right, so that's pretty much it for my tests. And so let's go and actually take a look at some of the automations that I have here. Now, just to give you a sense for what this is an automation that I've created. I'm going to do a whole video on this in the near future, so don't worry about that. But this automation right here is probably the best thing I've ever created. It is the most powerful tool that I currently have in my tool belt. And it's how I am currently using, it's what I'm currently using to write my novels. I won't walk you through everything. This is available to the people in my Story Hacker Gold group, which there is a link down below, if you want to play around with it yourself. So what I did is I took this thing, I had it write out the first 3 chapters of a novella that is called The Bloodline of the Abyss. And I had it write those out 3 different times, one with Sonnet 4, one with Opus 4.1, and one with this latest Sonnet 4.5. Now, this is an expensive automation, and it has a number of steps. The main steps are these 4 right here. And in the past, I've been using Sonnet 4 for this step, Opus 4.1 for this step, and the Gemini models for these 2 steps. And so what I did is I just replaced these 2 steps with Sonnet 4.5 or 4.0, depending on which test I was doing. And found, first of all, price. Let's talk price. If we look at the input and output price for Claude Sonnet 4.5, it is the same as Claude Sonnet 4, which is approximately $3 per million tokens of input and $15 per million tokens of output. For this process, particularly for this step right here, the first draft step, this is where I typically have been using Opus 4.1, and that usually runs me between 70 and 80 cents for just this one step, right? Which is pretty expensive. Altogether, this process cost me about $1 per chapter. So if I have a 40 chapter book, it's going to cost me $40. But when I use Sonnet for this step, it goes from being like 80 cents to more like 15 to 20 cents. So you save quite a bit of money just on this one step. And, everything still adds up to be probably maybe 40 cents or so. So it's still going to cost you a fair amount to go through this whole process, but it's significantly less if you're using Sonnet 4.5 or Sonnet 4.0 for that matter. I do use Opus because it's definitely been better than Sonnet 4.0 in the past, but hopefully you get the idea. All right, so with that in mind, let's actually look at the results that I got from this, starting with Sonnet 4, just so you can see where we were coming from, okay? Now, first of all, you can probably see this already visually. You can tell that we've got just a lot of big, beefy paragraphs here, and that's actually often a sign of poor writing, because it means you're just like giving us a bunch of description. It's not being broken up into more engaging paragraphs and sentences. There's no dialogue, that kind of thing. It's not a hard and fast rule, but I found that typically when you have like large chunks of text like this, It's usually weaker writing. If we look at the one here for Opus 4.0 or 4.1, it's a little bit better. Still a couple of blocks of text here. And for 4.5, it's definitely broken up here. You see, like, we have a paragraph here that's just one word, another one here that's just 3 words. So anyway, that's just something I thought I'd mention. So let's read the first little bit here. The golden afternoon light slanted through the scriptorian's narrow windows, illuminating dust motes that danced above Carmilla's work table. She dipped her finest brush into the crimson pigment, the bristles holding just enough paint to trace the delicate curve of St. Agatha's lips. The saint's face emerged from the vellum page with serene acceptance. There's a little AIism there. Just the overuse of adjectives. Her eyes fixed on something beyond the flames that consumed her flesh. Carmilla's hand moved with practiced precision, each stroke a prayer. Definitely some AIisms in there. Definitely just kind of like overdramatic prose here. Let's look at Opus 4.1. Carmilla dipped her brush into the shell of ground gold leaf, the powder flaring in the shaft of afternoon light. The saint's halo demanded more than gold. It demanded a steady hand and a silent prayer with every stroke. She held her breath, the bristles barely kissing the vellum as she traced the curve where St. Agatha's serene face met the painted flames. The martyrdom filled the manuscript pages, rendered in blues made from the crushed lapis and reds drawn from cinnabar. Agatha's expression remained peaceful despite the painted tongues of fire licking at her bound form. Her eyes gazed upward past the edges of the page toward a heaven invisible but absolute. Kind of similar, definitely better though, definitely more variety and specifics in, where it's talking about like crushed lapis and reds drawn from cinnabar, getting a little bit more specific, which is good. If we move on to, let's actually go to the beginning of chapter 2 and actually get into something that has some dialogue. The convent bell rang its cracked dissonant tone, cutting through the morning quiet, not for prayer, for an arrival. Not a good opening sentence, right? Very, tastes a lot like AI, but then here with Opus, we got the bell rang wrong, not the cracked dissonant clang that had announced the refugees' arrival a week ago, but a fuller sound, bronze given its proper voice, reserved for feast days and visitations. Still a little bit over the top, but definitely better. When we get to some of the dialogue here, we've got Father Morpheus has come. This is Sonnet 4 again. Sister Gisela whispered as she passed Carmilla's cell. Her voice dropped, though no one else was near, and she made the sign of the cross, a quick, furtive gesture after she spoke his name. And then there's like not any more dialogue here for a little while. Sister Carmilla, Mother Superior Agatha's voice had a sharp edge like splintered wood. Assist Sister Beatrix in the guest chamber. Fresh linens, the good candles, everything must be perfect. Okay? Kind of like, I don't know, robotic. When we get into Opus 4.1, it gets a little bit better here. Like we have sentences like this, which are good. The bell struck again, 3 times, pause, 3 times, pause, the pattern for distinguished visitors. I think that's good, like deep point of view there. Father Morpheus arrives today for his monthly visit. The words came quick, each syllable sharp with something that wasn't quite excitement. You will prepare the great hall, every surface cleaned, every candle replaced. Sister Gisela, the good wine from the cellar. Sister Beatrix, fresh linens from the head table. Sister Hilda, ensure the chapel is spotless. And me, Carmilla asked. Mother Superior's gaze fixed on her held too long. You will continue your illumination. We must show Father Morpheus that God's work continues despite difficulties. Despite the infected dying beneath our feet, the thought rose unbidden. Carmilla pressed it down, nodded her obedience. So definitely, like, I don't know, it feels like we're in an actual scene here. We're not just being told what is happening. It's definitely in a deeper point of view. All right. So with that in mind, let's take a look at what we got out of the Sonnet 4.5 version. Let's start with the beginning of chapter 1. Which goes like this. The afternoon light fell through the scriptorium's narrow windows in hard geometric blocks, illuminating the dust motes that hung in the still air. Carmilla bent over the tilted desk, her brush poised above the vellum where St. Agatha's face was taking shape in gold leaf and crimson. The saint's expression had to be perfect, serene amid the flames of her martyrdom, suffering transformed into holiness. She dipped the finest brush into the gold leaf suspension, the metallic scent sharp in her nostrils. There's a little bit of an AIism there. The stroke had to be steady, confident. One tremor would ruin hours of work. She touched the brush to the saint's cheek, drawing a thin line that caught the light and seemed to glow from within. Beautiful. All right, let's go to that scene here in chapter 2. Footsteps in the corridor outside. Sister Hilda's voice was a high, breathless thing. "He's coming today. Mother Superior just announced it." Carmilla's head lifted. The door to her cell burst open without a knock. "Did you hear?" Sister Hilda's round face was flushed. "Father Morpheus arrives this evening. We're preparing the chapel in the courtyard." The name was a cold stone dropping into her gut. She'd met the bishop only 3 times in her years here. Brief encounters after confession, his benediction at meals. Each time she'd felt a strange unease as if standing too close to a cliff's edge in fog. "I heard," Carmilla stood, brushing dust from her habit's hem. "Has Mother Superior given instructions?" "Everything. The finest candles in the chapel. The courtyard swept. The linens changed in the guest quarters." Sister Hilda grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the door. "Come, there's so much to do." So this is actually not too bad either. And honestly, I find it a little bit difficult to distinguish between Opus 4.1 and Sonnet 4.5. I think I need to play around with them a little bit more, get a little bit more of a sense of like which one is better for me. But I will say this. It is 100% way better than Sonnet 4. Like way better. So if you are using Sonnet 4 at any part of your process, I would strongly recommend upgrading to 4.5. I'm pretty sure in most of the instances, you are likely to get better results out of Sonnet 4.5 than Sonnet 4. What I'm interested in is, can we get better results than Opus 4.1, which for creative writing has been my favorite recently. And it's still really good, and it's really hard to tell which one has the edge. I think having read through a little bit more of this before I started filming this video, I think I still give the edge a little bit to Opus 4.1. I think it's still just a little bit better. Like the language is more diverse, if that makes sense. It feels more lived in, more human. It feels like it was actually like the scene was reasoned out by in a more human way, rather than just sort of like robotically producing words that match your outline, right? It feels like there's more thinking going on. That's the only way I can describe it. But Sonnet 4.5 is very, very close. And if you're concerned about price, like with my automation costing me $1 per chapter, it might be worth it to go with Sonnet 4.5 just for the savings I'll make by converting it from Opus 4.1 to Sonnet 4.5. But is it better? It's close, but I don't think it's quite as good as Opus 4.1. Maybe when we get Opus 4.5, that will be a clear improvement. But overall, definitely a solid model. Definitely better than Sonnet 4. So go ahead and make all of those upgrades. I even found that Sonnet 4 was not as good at Sonnet 3.7 in some specific use cases, like with writing articles, for example. In this case, this one's definitely better at writing articles. And so I'd be happy to convert some of those things over to Sonnet 4.5 as well for some of my automations and things. Overall, I think this is just a very solid model. It's definitely one I recommend you check out. Try it for your writing. You're definitely going to get good results for your writing. Are they going to be better than 4.1 Opus? I think that might be a matter of taste. I think Opus might just be a smidgen better, but it is an expensive model. So deal with that how you will. Hopefully this has been useful for you. And if you want to get access to this automation that I talked about, go ahead and check out my link down below to join the Gold group. We are on a wait list right now, but if you don't see it open, I'm sure we could probably get you in at some point in the near future. So go ahead and check that out, and I will see you there.